Good evening, everyone, and welcome to our first fireside chat of the biennium. My name is Hunter Moreland, and I'm the subcommittee chair for the Professional Forums subcommittee of the Programs and Professional Development, uh, part of the Kappa Alumni Association. Our fireside chat tonight is entitled "The Comeback is Greater Than the Setback: Reframing Your Mindset and Finding Identity After Failure." Uh, Little disclaimer before we get started. Fireside chats are part of the Building Bridges, Building Brothers program, which is designed to be the signature personal and professional development program for the members of the Kappa Kappa Psi Alumni Association. This chat is being recorded as well as broadcast live on Facebook and will not be edited in any way. Please remember this as you make any comments. All attendees should now mute and turn off their videos. Please submit any questions that you have about tonight's topic using the chat option. I will do my best to include any questions at the end of this chat if time allows. So we're going to get started off by introducing our lovely panelists here today. If I can get our panelists to introduce themselves by stating their name, chapter, initiation date, current career, and then two things that'll be a little bit related to our topic tonight. I want to hear what your current or most recent fraternal involvement looks like. And then specifically, since we will be talking about unsuccessful elections tonight, if you could share your unsuccessful election for our topic tonight. Just going in order of how I have people here, let's start with Ed.
Hey there, everybody. My name is Ed Savoy. I am a member of the Eta Alpha and the Eta Omicron chapters. I was initiated into Eta Alpha in the fall of 2002. I'm currently a senior business operations manager at Shogun. I'm the current chair of the Friend and Advocates Initiative, and I lost my 2017 race for Vice President for Programs and my 2023 race for Vice President of Membership and Expansion.
Thank you, Ed. Let's go with Maxie next.
Hello, everyone. My name is Maxie O'Connor, Spring 2010 initiate from the Mu Sigma chapter. Uh, Spring 2015, I ran for Vice President Student Affairs, and spring of 2017, I ran for Vice President of Programs. I'm currently a transatlantic lead for JetBlue Airways in New York.
All right, thank you, Maxie. And now let's go with Jessica.
Hi, everybody. My name is Jessica Lee. I am a life member from the Eta Alpha chapter at Lock Haven University of Pennsylvania. I was initiated in fall 2003. I currently sit as vice chair of the Board of Trustees for the fraternity. I've had a couple unsuccessful elections in my time. First one I ever lost was chapter president to Ed, as I was thinking of reflecting back. So I had to say that since we're on the call together. I also lost the first time I ran for Northeast District President, lost the first time, won the second time. In 2019, I ran, no, 17, 19-ish, the dates are running together. I ran for Vice President for Colonization and Membership and was instead elected to Vice President for Student Affairs. Oh, professionally, I am a district level administrator. I work in curriculum and instruction for Seguin ISD. It's a 5A school district in Central Texas.
All right, thank you, Jessica. The biggest reason that I wanted my panelists here to share this concept about the unsuccessful elections. Elections are something that we are all familiar with, but we've all been involved through the fraternity in one election or another. We've all seen the outcomes of several elections likely over the course of our time, and it's a very, public expression of how things are operating in the fraternity. And you know, while we all have these great ideas and these great intentions for how we want things to operate, we're not always going to be successful in presenting that to other people. But that's not always a bad thing. Sometimes that just means you need to take a step back and reevaluate what you've presented to everyone and kind of reframe how you're looking at these different topics, reset point of view. And so the people that I professionally, fraternally, personally, all incredibly successful people, but they've all had this one commonality of they have been unsuccessful in an election. And despite this fact, they've managed to they've managed to do these great things ever since. And what we're going to try and illustrate here today is you can take those failures and use them as a tool to grow yourself, grow your personal views, your professional, fraternal involvement, really shape how you develop as a person, even though you might have had this one stumbling point along the way. So, for each of our panelists, we're going to start with a question about the election in particular. What was that immediate reaction that you had when you were not elected? And then also thinking 24 hours later, 1 week later, 1 month later, what was kind of that progression of the feeling? I'm going to start with Maxie on this one.
My first reaction, the first year I ran, I was very heartbroken, very, very heartbroken. Whew, yeah, it was. Yeah, it was tough. It was definitely tough. Um, but I said I was going to run again and do it again. And I was also able to build relationships with other brothers because of that. So those after 24 hours, I said, I'm going to get involved more, participate more, continue to stay active and, give back as much as I can, because that's, one of the reasons why, I became a member of the fraternity. So, yeah, it was heartbroken. It was.
Let's go over to Ed now.
So I will carry on with kind of that theme of heartbreak because both times I'm just going to be honest, I cried. The first time in 2017, I had some time to end up going out in the hall, and one of my friends ended up finding me, and I just bawled in her arms for like a couple of minutes. Now, at that election, I did ultimately leave as part of the board of trustees, so the sting was a little bit less than it otherwise might have been. In 2023, I was on the council and lost VPME, and I managed to hold myself together through the rest of that session, but it was probably I think I was like a zombie throughout the rest of that session, and I also found some time to end up crying as soon as I don't think there's shame in it, but it's not something that I think a lot of people really want to do publicly. If you do, that's great. I'm just not that person. And so I had a few minutes to end up doing that in someone's arms because as I don't want to speak for my fellow panelists here, but putting yourself out there is makes you incredibly vulnerable. And so even as I hope we'll talk about, though not the correct way to think about it, I don't think is rejection, but it certainly feels like that in the moment. So yeah, heartbreak, like Maxie said, I think is the good way to end up thinking about it.
Yeah, and we'll definitely talk about some of that sting effect just a little bit later. Jessica, let's go.
It's funny because when I lost the VPCM election against Marco and I got elected to VPSA, my husband was the national president. And so I had just presented or done something, and he was starting to do the announcement. And I'm not kidding, I was bolting. Like I was running without running down the aisle because I was like, if I lose, if I lose again, like it was, I was literally running. And I will never forget this because Dr. Chestnut, past national president Dr. Chestnut, when the election started, he actually came back and he sat with me before that they started. And he was funny because he was trying to give away his placard to other people for his voting placard as a past national president. And he was saying, "Here, you can be me, you can be me." And the PNPs are like, "No, you got to get up here, Rod." But he was so supportive in that moment. And I mean, I agree with Ed. You put yourself out there in such a vulnerable way. And I had done all of this work for the Road to Wisdom. And so I really felt like I'm an educator. Like I felt like VPCM was the job that I wanted and everything. And um, so when I got elected VPSA, kind of like Ed was saying, like, I lost the election I wanted and I got something else, but it was something I didn't have a plan for. And even though I had been slated that, it was still a shock because I still really thought I was going to get this one job. And so it's it wasn't a heartbreak necessarily because I still got elected to council and I'm one of those people that's half glass full. And so I want to make the best of everything. But it was definitely just this disappointment. Like I had worked so hard on the Road to Wisdom and I thought that I had done a good job. You really just, you get, I agree with Ed. Like it kind of does feel a little bit like rejection, but it wasn't as bad as honestly when I lost Northeast District President for the first time. That was much more devastating to me. Um, or not Northeast District President. I'm sorry. I had ran for member at large actually. Ran, slated, thought I was going to get it. Somebody else got it, and I wanted nothing to do with the district after that, and so that was actually a more devastating loss than the national one. But I think the national elections are different because the process goes on so long, and you're vulnerable in front of so many people. Like it's not like a chapter election that kind of happens in a smaller snapshot. I mean, you are really, really vulnerable, and I think it's really difficult and it's really mentally challenging.
Yeah, absolutely. I completely agree. Having to put yourself out on that big stage in front of everyone, it's something I don't know if I have the ability to do, and I certainly applaud anyone that does put them forward to the delegation. Anyone that has the fortitude to do that, I applaud you. Uh, let's go on to talking a little bit about that sting that you do feel when you don't achieve what you had striven so hard for. When did that sting go away for y'all? And what did y'all do to mitigate some of that feeling of the sting? Jessica, we'll start with you.
I kind of want to talk about when I ran for district office, and I only say that because it was such a pivotal moment for me that I didn't really know how to be able to. I really didn't want anything to do with the district because I thought like I was slated. I thought I had it in the bag. I had done a lot of work for member at large, and then when someone got elected over me, I was like, I'm done with this. And if it were not for Ken Corbett and Kirk Randazzo taking me aside and saying that I needed to continue to do things, I probably never would have. And I wouldn't have continued to run for things. And so I think was people in the moment encouraging me that I still had something to offer, even if it wasn't the thing that I thought I wanted to do, that really helped that sting go away. Um, but I think it's really easy to get in a dark place and feel rejected and not wanted and not want to do anything at all. And having like kind of, like Ed was saying, like having someone there to be able to comfort you, but also encourage you is so important because I know plenty of people who have lost an election and totally walked away from the organization because you just feel so rejected.
Yeah, certainly having that good support group to fall back in that can certainly assist. Maxie, let's go over to you next.
Oof. It took a while. I don't I learned not to take things personal, but I don't know. I part of it felt personal to me when I did lose. I don't know why, but at the same time, it was definitely a lesson learned. I was able to, like I said before, I was able to connect with other brothers and when I went back to DC, that the support system that I had was 8 Omega from Howard. Because I lived there, they definitely did, look out for me, supported me in every which way that they could. Zach also reached out to me, and I was able to help him with certain things at the time when he became VPSA. But like sometimes in my back of my mind, I would think about like, man, like, can't believe I lost, but. It did take a while, but I was able to become a better brother because of it.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. When you have someone that is willing to, still hear you out, hear out some of your ideas, and like what it sounds like you had with Zach, still kind of push some of those same ideas that you had wanted to do. That certainly helps the sting go away. Ed, let's hear from you.
I want to join with my colleagues here on kind of the value of a support system around you, where I had like some very dear friends help me both times through kind of that process. And one of the things that like surprised me was I had some folks that like I was friendly with, but like they weren't my best friends. But that ended up like, and some of them were students that came up to me and told me about an impact that I'd had that I didn't even know about. So, I mean, I would have preferred to end up hearing it in a slightly different context, but it was still very nice to hear, and it did end up helping. So, those kind words, even if as the person saying them, they feel hollow to you, can help. And in terms of kind of like that sting idea, I was thinking about this question, and I don't want to get over dramatic because ultimately we're talking about like running for an office to help out band nerds. But the best process, the best kind of analogy I could think about is kind of a grieving process. And I was thinking about there's a movie called Rabbit Hole where a character explains that process of like that grief is like a brick in your pocket and it feels heavy at first and ultimate and you do always carry it, but ultimately you start not to notice it, and you go a long time without noticing it, and like sometimes you'll end up finding it again or feeling it again, but like even though I'm not going to say these are all pleasant memories, it is still a memory that kind of helps shape who, at least I am, and I, again, not to speak for my colleagues, but I think who they are as well. So, I mean, it is tough, but it is manageable if you have that support system and if you go in with kind of that mindset.
Yeah, I like the analogy to a grief process. I certainly can see people processing this in a similar way that they process grief. Also, I love that I can always trust Ed to reference a movie that I have never heard of, but I
Really
will
good.
definitely have to check that one out.
Nicole Kidman and Aaron Eckhart and Diane Wiest. Really good movie. There's like
Okay,
not a happy one because they actually are grieving, but good movie nonetheless.
I appreciate that one. All right, now looking a little bit at your specific election. Yes, Ed is wonderful for the movie recommendations. Uh, Looking at your specific election, why do you feel that you were personally unsuccessful? And what do you feel you could have done differently to prepare yourself and to uh, put forth a better platform for what you were striving for? Let's go with we'll go with Ed first on this one.
So I'm going to answer that, but I also want to introduce kind of a corollary idea to this where, and like I think about it also not just in terms of this, but like with job interviews, where there are times where it's not you, it's not me, it's wait a second, no. It's not you, it's me. That's the phrase. Is actually true, where it's not necessarily a lack on your part. It's just that the electorate or the job board or whoever it is that is making those decisions, they're looking for something different. And that doesn't mean what you had was bad. It's just not what people were looking for. And like it doesn't make it easier necessarily because obviously we're all always going to be biased in our own directions where we're usually going to think that what we have is going to be the best thing that's on offer, but being able to, at least with time, step back and end up having that thought process, at least for me, I think is valuable. In terms of kind of actually answering your question, I think for me it was being able to explain what it was I wanted to do and why I was the person to do it. I think I was good on the what and not always good on the why. So, and again, I think that's a lesson that ends up going into like multiple areas of life where, and again, just job interviews are because like an election is a job interview of sorts, and kind of, and I think some of those principles still apply where if you're not doing both the what and the why, then you're not going to be successful in either endeavor.
Yeah, I like that delineation of the concept of the what and the why. Uh, definitely want to make sure that you're covering both of those adequately, and can see where a fault could happen if you're not covering both of those fully. Let's go to Jessica next.
I think it's, I actually find this to be an interesting question, Hunter. And when you had sent us the questions ahead of time, I found this one the most interesting only because it's, like you put yourself out there to do something because you think you're great, right? Like you think you've got the right ideas and the right things. And so it's like really you want to pose the question to the people that were there in the moment, like, hey, what was the edge? What was the thing that edged someone out over me, or what did they have more? I think in my case, Marco was sitting on the council. He was VPP, and he had been done work at the Alumni Association, and so while I had done work on a committee, and I had done a lot of work in the Southwest District as like a workshop presenter, I was relatively unknown. And I had started doing that work with the Road to Wisdom and doing some traveling. But I mean, Marco was definitely more well known and had done a lot of really great work as VPP. And so I think definitely the track record and the notability piece, it definitely gave him an edge over me for sure. It's difficult, I think, to go back and reflect because there's a million missteps you can think about in your head. It's like when you spoke in front of that district, sometimes things land and sometimes they don't. You write things, you submit things in January, you don't actually get there till July. Like you try to refine in things, but how much are you putting ideas in front of students to see how they land? Like there's a piece of this that when you're running for national office, we're running as people who are no longer active. And so we're not living the active experience. And so you're always thinking like right now, I'm 40 years old and I'm working with students that are 20 years younger than me. Is what I'm saying relevant? Is what I'm saying real to the college experience now? And so I think there's so many moments to go back and reflect about what you could have done differently. And I think as brothers, we have that intrinsic piece within us and within the ritual that tells us we should take time to reflect, right? And there's a thousand different things we could say that we've done better, but I I don't know. It's an interesting question to pose because I think it points to um, deeper things of like I really appreciate Ed's words about like the why and the how and not being the person that you're looking for. I think we have great people, and especially the more people we've had running, like people have great choices, and it's just what is the thing that's resonating with people, and is it resonating with today's college student? I think that question when it comes to elections is really to me one of the most foremost things now because the college student today, what they care about and what's relevant to them is not the same thing that was relevant to me as a college student.
And if I may very briefly bounce off of that, I think it comes down to what people value and like what like Jess was saying, what we value as alums of different ages may be different from what students value. Ultimately, the students are the deciders, and we need to be in tune with what the students value. And but that can be like a difficult mind shift to make.
Yeah, certainly knowing your audience and how to best approach them and deliver the message to them, that'll certainly generate a different kind of response. Maxie, let's go with you.
Yeah, I was really thinking hard about this, and I felt like I was very well prepared. I felt like I got great feedback. Everyone was receptive to, my plans and ideas, and I just felt like it wasn't my time. Um, and I know the first year that I ran, um, Brother Zach was very well established on the national level, and he had way more experience than me. So I would also think about, okay, what else can I do to, get more involved with the fraternity? But yeah, I look at it as, it just wasn't my time.
Yeah, and timing can play a huge part in these things. Sometimes it's just not the right crowd. Sometimes it's not the right time for you personally. And you might need some more experience, just like you said, and that you certainly would have the time to be able to gather that experience. On the note of experience, let's talk about how this experience has kind of shifted your mindset as you've moved forward in your personal life, in your professional life, in your fraternal life. How has this I don't want to say a lack of success, but an unsuccessful experience shaped that mindset you have? Let's start on this one with Jessica.
I think about a couple of things. Um, I think the first thing is that if you feel driven to run, you shouldn't let fa other factors like not having enough experience or things like that stop you because I have seen plenty of people be successful in a role without having what people deem as experience, right? So I don't think people should like if you feel like you have something to offer and you're willing to take the risk, I think you should do it. That being said, I think the most if I have learned anything over the years and experiencing different failure, mentors have probably been the most powerful thing that has helped to shape me. Especially having run for subsequent elections, having folks to challenge me, to vet my materials, to ask me questions, to be a sounding board, to be the devil's advocate, and to put it in front of students that I know has probably been something that I've done differently in later times that I didn't do in earlier times. Because you have to you're not going to resonate with everybody. And you have to in my opinion, especially when you're running for a national office, there has to be a blend of tangible with inspirational because if you're going on this journey, you're leading not just a small group. I mean, you're leading a lot of people. You're leading people or initiatives, and people have to feel um, compelled to follow in that vision. So there's that blend of tangibles with visionary thinking, and you have to have mentors to be able to vet that information through and to be able to guide you. And I have relied so much more now, and especially having been national president on mentors, people like Dr. Matney, Dr. Randazzo, Adam Cantley, Tim Greenwell, Danny George, just different people in my life to be able to see things through different lenses. People like Rasai Elliott, like you can't, it's very easy to get insular and think about just the people that are your friends or the people that you hear all the time. Like there are people that I can go to that are they're people that love you and they're always going to tell you that great. I want the people that are going to tell me like this is terrible. This idea is awful, and so let's work through it. And so having the people in your life that can give you real feedback, I think is one of the things that helps you grow and get past things because if you're always hearing that everything is good, you're never finding a way to be able to refine things. And I think that has been one of the things that has helped me overcome is having that person like, let's talk about what happened and why. Like, what could you have done better? What could you work through? And then not only that of, do you still want to serve? Do you still want to do something? And what do you want that to look like? The thing that I am most passionate about in the fraternity is working with students. If I do nothing else ever again, I hope I get to do workshops. That's the thing that I love the most. That's the thing that I feel like I'm the best at is working with students. And so even at points where I lost an election, I still continued to give workshops and I still continued to do the things that I loved. And so really thinking about what do you want your impact to be? And was it just to gain a title? Was it just to do that job? Or do you really want to serve the fraternity? And I think there's some soul searching, once you get past the sting, once you get past this piece of what do you really want to serve and in what capacity when you're ready to. Because I also think there's also a moment for stepping back and staying away. And I think that's okay. I think there's period for reflection and growth too.
Yeah, absolutely. I want to give a big amen to the talk to the people that don't like what you want, what you're presenting, the people that don't like you or your platform or something like that. Those are always going to be the people that you want to talk with, as opposed to, those people that are always going to tell you that you're great at everything. So, amen to that. I've had to be that person for people in the past, so I'm right there with you. Maxie, let's go with you next.
Yeah, I'd say the experience shifted my mindset on like plain and simple, not giving up. Um, Keep on moving, keep striving. You know, Having that position is cool, but your main when you first joined a fraternity, it was for serving college university bands. Everything else was extra along that. So, um, I just tried to keep the main thing pretty much, and that was serving college university bands, and that pretty much helped me, move forward with everything.
Yeah, absolutely. That continuing to persevere and push forward. I think we have a good motto for that in the fraternity, something about striving. But yeah, absolutely, I agree with you. Ed, let's hear from you.
I'll echo a couple of themes and hopefully introduce a variation on a theme since we're music people. I do think you really, through these experiences, you really do learn who's in your corner, not like in an electoral sense, like who voted for you, but like who you can rely on for support, be that emotional or otherwise in the aftermath. I think the second thing, and this ties, I think, a little bit into what Maxie was saying, that at the end of the day, like, no, we don't need titles to serve. I'm no greater or worse for having a title now or having had one in the past or having one in the future. I can still serve. I can still find a way. And I think that is valuable to learn. And the third thing is like failure is part of life. Like I'm a sports person, and so a few sports analogies. Baseball, the greatest hitters that ever played fail 60% of the time. The greatest basketball players that ever played fail about 40 to 45% of the time. The greatest quarterbacks to ever play fail about 30% of the time. You're gonna fail. And you can like be mad about it. You can nurse bitterness, you can nurse grudges for it. And I'm not saying I've never done those things, but you can keep doing that, or you can grow past it. You can get past it. And again, easier said than done. And it's not that you're going to wake up 2 weeks later and it's like, oh, I'm over it. But like kind of staying in the fight and recognizing that you still have something to offer, I think is incredibly valuable.
Hunter, can I piggyback off Ed? I just
Absolutely.
I just thought Ed, like, it's so true just what you said about failure, because it's how we overcome that failure. I think about what we learn in the ritual and what we were taught about failure. And I think that that's, how to apply that to our life. That's a great moment to think about those analogies. And it's how we overcome that and move forward is where the learning is. And you had said something, Ed, like I can still serve without a title. And I have said this over and over in leadership workshops that the greatest title I will ever hold is brother. The best title I will ever hold is brother. The title that I will hold the dearest to me is brother. And so I think what it really comes down to is if you want to serve, like Maxie said, like the core is I want to serve college and university bands, and whatever that looks like for you, even if you need the period to step away and reflect, whatever that looks like for you, you have to think about like, what did I really want to do and how can I still do that? And I think the fraternity has grown in such a way to give those avenues now. We didn't have necessarily all of this work between conventions or look at the alumni association. Like there's so many ways to be able to serve now if you want to, and people are needed. And so I think there's great opportunity now for folks that didn't necessarily exist 15 years ago, so that if people want to serve, there's definitely ways to do it. Where I feel like when I was a student, the only ways you really could was governor. I mean, there really wasn't a lot of other ways. So I think there's lots of opportunities now for folks to serve too.
Yeah, it's wonderful the sheer volume of opportunities we have at this point. I'm seeing a lot of great comments come in from our guests here in the Zoom room as well as on Facebook. Everyone's kind of agreeing with that sentiment that, just being a brother is a wonderful opportunity to serve. I think about what a dear friend and brother of mine, he would always say that you can be just as strong of a leader from the back of the room, being a follower as you can from being in the front of the room with a title. So definitely can see that leadership manifest in a lot of different ways. So now that we talked a little bit about the mindset behind this, let's talk a little bit about identity and who you are with or without that title. So how did you find a new identity for yourself without what you were striving for? And what did you do to not overstep into that position that you wanted to be? I can see a lot of opportunities for you to be in a place where you weren't supposed to be in. Certainly don't want that to happen. But how did y'all kind of contend with those things? I want to start with Maxie on this one.
Oof. Uh, hmm.
Rather use, I think, unique perspective. There there was a non-zero chance that like I would still go to conventions, but that I didn't have any particular plans on getting involved with anything, at least in the imminent future. Nick ended up putting out a call in spring 24 for petitioning group advisors. I figured, okay, this is like a 6 months to 12-month commitment. I can end up making that. And so I signed up and I thought that was going to be as far as it went. And then he got foolish and said, "Hey, you want to do more, Ed?" And like I've had the pleasure of knowing Nick for many years, and he was and something that also that I don't think any of us have spoken about because again, losing sucks. but losing to good people, I think everybody lost to good people helps more. And Nick is a great guy. And in terms of kind of working with him and not overstepping, kind of thinking about if I were in his position, would I want someone to be encroaching on my prerogative? And especially since my position didn't previously exist, I think I was relatively conservative in like deferring to him wherever possible because at the end of the day, like I said, not gonna say that it ever completely goes away, but like the students they chose him, so it is his vision that I am fulfilling, and he chose to help me fulfill it. And if I can contribute in my own ways, but in like respectful ways, never putting him like in a position where he feels that he would have been like put out. I think that is crucial. So like speaking more broadly, I think having that empathy for that person and being able to put yourself in that person's shoes, how you would want to be treated in that position if the positions were reversed, I think helps a great deal.
Yeah, very much enjoy what you had there, Ed. Jessica, I see Maxie turned his audio on, so let's hear from him.
Sorry. Sorry. Yeah, so I was just basically going to say, for me, just reaching out to the officers to let them know that I am available if they need any help. Just reaching out just to let them know. And I just take a step back pretty much because again, you don't want to feel like you're overstepping or anything like that. So, um, I know with, being in office, sometimes you might need some help. So, just reach out and say, hey, like if you need anything, anything you need help with, giving them that opportunity to say, okay, I could reach out to Maxie for this, or I could reach out for Jessica for this, and so forth. So, that's one of the ways that I have like a different identity with that, and knowing that they wouldn't feel like I'm overstepping because I still give them the space to do what they need to do for the fraternity, and just let them know that they have a helping hand.
Yeah, definitely putting yourself out there as I can always be a resource for you to use to assist with enacting your vision. Being that kind of person, that's definitely a great role to have. Jessica, let's go on to you.
Before I answer your question, I just have to take a moment and comment on the beauty of Ed and Nick, only because I'm friends with both of them, and both of them have said to me separately or on this call or what, they have both been each other's cheerleader. And you don't find that everywhere where you have someone that lost a job or lost or whatever, missed out, and you have both people being one another's cheerleader and support. And they really are. I have literally heard both of them say great things about one another and work together. And Ed has done phenomenal things for the friend and advocate program. Nick has done great things in his positions. And so I think that is what makes the fraternity different, is when you have people and relationships and things like that, where you can have people work, still work together, still work through it and do incredible things that they probably wouldn't be able to do separately. It's, you have these people working towards that common goal, and that's what makes the fraternity unique. And I just have to comment on that because you don't get that everywhere, and it's definitely special. Um, I think when I think about like, how do you not overstep? First of all, I definitely feel like I probably did as a student when Ed became president. And so, like, let me just apologize 20 something years later, because I'm sure I was definitely a pain in his you know what, because I was young and naive and had literally been a brother for a semester when I decided to run against him in my hubris. So, he was definitely the right person for the job. So, let me just say that, Ed Savoy, publicly. I think. It it was hard when Marco became VPCM and I was VPSA because I was still so involved with the Road to Wisdom stuff because I was part of curriculum committee and I was doing all the leading of that work. And there really was a tango between he and I because he had not been in that work. And so we were catching him up, but there were things he had to make decisions on, but the committee had been doing the work. And it was tough sometimes that we had to like really kind of work through some of those things. And I think it's the constant checking in of like, is this okay? Is this the way that you want it? Is this, or coming to consensus on things. I think it can be really difficult because when you are really passionate about something but yet you're still involved in working, it can be really easy to try to push the vision that you wanted to do. And it can be difficult to hold yourself in check. And I think there is definitely something to be said to how to navigate that, but still be in service, and how difficult it can be, and how much I commend anyone who still wants to continue to serve even when they didn't get the position because it is hard, especially if you're doing work that you wanted to do, but you're not doing it necessarily the way that you had planned. And there is a grief to that. There is.
Yeah, I'm so glad you mentioned that about your involvement with curriculum committee and the Road to Wisdom because I thought the timing would have lined up for that. So I was really interested in seeing what exactly your perspective on that was. So I appreciate you sharing that information with us. All right, we're going to go now to uh, looking at the ultimate concept of failure in the vein of the election. You know, the unsuccessful election can be seen as a failure, but were there elements of that failure that you would consider to be successful? You know, you can kind of see it on both sides of the equation, the good and the bad. How did that experience have some good silver linings in the process? Uh, Jessica, we'll start with you.
Um, when I got elected VPSA, I remember it was that evening, and Melinda Matney came up to me, and she had said, "You got the position you should have ran for." And at the time, it was really difficult to hear. And when I look back now, years later, she was absolutely right. I wasn't ready to be VPCM. I needed that council experience, and when I I was ran for VPCM. I was slated for VPSA. I got elected VPSA. And then when I just asked people, what they had said was, you were going around and working with students with the Road to Wisdom, but you connected with us. And so they wanted me because I connected with them, but I wanted to do that other work. And so it it was really hard. And I think like when I think about how it came out on the other end, I wouldn't want to change it, but it was really hard in the moment and for a while afterwards because it wasn't the job or the work that I had set out to do. But it became my favorite position. And if I ever decided to run for council again, I will not. But if I did, it's the job I would want to do because it's the job that I had absolutely the most joy in. And so it's funny how things work out in a way that you don't expect them to. Like when I lost the first time I ran for district council, in that time, I ended up being chapter president, which helped better prepare me to be district president. And so I think about all those things that happen for a reason. And definitely when I ran for chapter president, I certainly was not ready to do that work. And it was, again, my hubris was enormous. And so I just think about all of the times that I had put myself, I wasn't ready to do that job. And so there was a moment and lesson of learning and doing something else and but still being involved and doing other things that helped prepared me to better take on the position that I eventually ended up getting. And so I think you have to be super reflective to think about where you were then and what you ultimately ended up doing to look back now. Because even 2 year, the whole time that I was VPSA, I learned to love the job, but it probably took me at least 6 months to get there. And so I don't know. I think that I am also somebody that doesn't like to fail. I'm a perfectionist. I'm a hard worker. I like to win. It's intrinsic to my personality. I'm board games. I want to win. That's just who I am. And so when you have this like type A kind of personality, failure hits hard and it hits deep and it can be really devastating and make you think like you're not worth it. And that imposter syndrome really can stick in. I would, make up. Brene Brown calls it the story I tell in my head, the things that you tell yourself to because you don't know why. So you tell yourself these stories and it can really bring yourself down. And so again, going back to that importance of having the people in your corner, whomever they are, to be able to lift you up and to really ask you the question, what are you going to do now? And what are you going to do next? And are you going to let yourself wallow or are you going to come back better and stronger?
Absolutely. Note to self, think twice about inviting Jessica to board game night. But otherwise, yes, I wholeheartedly agree with what you said there. Sometimes it's those mentors and people that you associate with that are going to know best what you should be doing. You can tell them what you want to do, and they'll gladly support you. But deep down inside, they might realize better than you what you should be doing. So it's great to have those people in your life. Maxie, let's go over to you.
Yeah, so I think for me, the failure, because like that was like my first time running for national office. I I never got the opportunity to run for a district office or anything, and I think for me, when I lost, it gave me a lot of insight and understanding on how to prepare for my next run in office, which I felt I was more prepared for than the first one. And I would say that I was also able to connect with past national presidents, past national officers as well. So I would look at that as a great success. Even going to headquarters, I was able to just, kick it with them, just like we went we went to dinner and like it was a great relationship and fellowship was pretty good.
Yeah, and sometimes developing those relationships, that's going to be just as important. Getting to share those bonds and create those new experiences for yourself that you might not otherwise have been able to do so. Ed, let's move on to you.
I think kind of the lessons from my failure were the different kinds of resilience, kind of like what Jess was talking about, since the first time I did end up in a position, just not the one that I expected. Like, how do I pivot into this? How do I find my place and find a way to contribute into something I wasn't expecting? The second time, and this is something that I think we were recently touching upon, was what does my identity look like now? What does my path look like now? And like people talk about resilience there and like that's a very valuable thing to be and to learn. There are different kinds of resilience and different ways of being resilient, and like if you're having a water shot game on that word right now, then congratulations, you need to pee right now. So but I think that is the broader lessons, at least for me personally.
I'm so sorry. Can I
You're
add
good.
something?
Absolutely.
Um, and it just because I remember me and Ed during that year, um, and they mentioned okay, so I think was it 2017, Ed? Yeah,
Yeah,
2017.
2017 is when we were both doing VPP.
Right. So I remember also being nominated for board of trustees, and I the because there was like two slots open, right? If I'm not mistaken. Yeah,
Oh yeah.
and I declined it. Because at that time, when I'm thinking board of trustees, I'm just thinking back to like university and board of trustees where you need like $50,000 and but at the time I really didn't know, but um going back to like the failure and consider success, I felt like other brothers saw me in that light where, where that could have been an opportunity for me as well. Um, so yeah, I think that's also a success story because um like even with you, Jessica, what the first position you run for VP CM, and everyone saw that it was best for you to be VPSA at the time, and Ed as well, becoming board of trustees. So I feel like you know one position may not work at this present time for you. There's always opportunities for something else.
Yeah, couldn't have said it better myself. I think you summed up exactly what I would have said after Ed finished up. So thank you for taking that one for me, Maxie. All right. Uh, getting here towards the end of the chat. So if anyone has any questions that they'd like to have me propose to the panelists, just feel free to share those. Any tips that panelists want to give for kind of putting yourself out there for elections, and then if unsuccessful, how do you kind of pull yourself back together? Yeah, this is getting a lot more focused on the election element, trying to hopefully inspire some more people to go down this route, well, without fear of any sort of perceived failure. So any tips that you can share with our audience today? Let's start with, if you don't mind, Maxie.
Yeah, so I think one of the things I learned was meeting as many brothers as you can, not just because you're running for office, but if you live in their area or if they're not far from you, take a road trip, and if they're having some type of event or workshop or something, go and support them. I think that's key, especially if you've never met uh, that chapter or so forth. And if you have the opportunity to attend other district conventions, I highly recommend it. Um, that's, certain ways you can put yourself out there. And if you are unsuccessful, just take it as a learning experience. Yeah, if you need to take a breather, take a deep breath, get your mind together, and go back at it, and just remember your reason for your reason for doing this in the first place.
Yeah, I'll always support any answer that involves interfacing with more people and attending more conventions. It's so good to get out of your comfort zone and interact with other people. But also, like you were saying, taking a step back, assessing the situation, perfectly fine. Let's go on now to Ed.
I'm gonna go with two tips for people running and one for our listeners who may not want to run, but just kind of either knowing people who are participating in elections or just watching the electoral process. For those going through, look. Elections have winners and losers. Like, even if you're very confident in yourself and your vision, there's a chance that you're going to lose. Have a plan for what that looks like, even though not in a way that like kind of demoralizes you as like, oh, I'm going to lose, but just recognize that it is a possibility. And okay, if this happens, what happens next? Who do you want around you? What does that night look like? And like you can't like plan out the next couple of months by any means, but you can at least plan out that day and end up thinking about kind of what that looks like and how you're going to react, knowing that your emotions may end up overwhelming you, and that's okay too. But at least having some idea might end up helping. Which kind of leads into the second one. Make sure you have a good core of people around you, win or lose. If you win, you want to have the folks closest to you to celebrate with, and if you lose, you want to have the folks closest to you help you kind of deal with it. And then for just like a general thing, have empathy for people running for office. Maybe you don't agree with like what they have to offer, or you have a different preference, and that's fine. That's what an election is. But I think it was Jess who said earlier, I have seen so many people like take a election loss very hard and just never come back and never like not even just not do anything again, just like never show their face again. And like in some cases I think that's just life, but like in some cases I think they just really took it that hard, and I get it. And so have empathy for them. Don't like try to drag them back like right away, but like in the immediate aftermath, just tell them that you love them, or that they inspired you in some way, or that they feel for you. And in the kind of the medium to long term aftermath, don't let them, unless they want, if they want to disappear, different people are going to react that way, and that's okay too. But if it's a case of they don't feel like they have a home, remind them that they do have a home.
Yeah, really wonderful there, Ed. Uh, while you were saying that first little bit, uh, I couldn't help but think about the concept of writing your own concession speech. You know, even in our uh, U.S. electoral process, someone is going to have to write a concession speech, and having that good sense of how you want to approach that. That's it's a tough thing to grapple with, but it's something that you kind of need to be prepared for. So really liked what you mentioned there.
It's funny you said that, and because I don't think you knew this, Hunter, but the today's version of concession speech is a Facebook post, and I did literally have one drafted up. I obviously hoped I wouldn't have to use it, but I did have it prepared. So no, and like not saying everyone has to do that, but that concept I absolutely agree with.
Somehow this doesn't surprise me as the person who packs for conventions about a month ahead of time. All right, Jessica, let's hear from you.
So some tangible things that have worked well for me, when it comes to elections, to start drafting your ideas as they come to you. One of the th strategies that I've used is as I've talked to people, when I have a good idea, I put it in a note in my phone. And so as I'd have conversations with folks and I'd say something, they're like, dang, that was a good idea. I need to write that down. So as you're having those conversations and ideas, like keep track of them, to plan early, because running for national office is different than any other office. What you're doing is bigger. And so by planning, I mean start drafting ideas and start vetting them. Talk to people that have held that job, because what we perceive the job to be and then living the job are two different things. And having had a spouse that held every national position and held them before me, I thought I was ready and I was not ready. Every time I thought I knew what the job was, and I didn't know till I experienced it. And so, talking to a wide variety of folks that have held different positions or held the position that you want is so vital, because you get different lenses of the job in that moment, because the jobs have also changed over time. And having those perspectives really helps inform what you're going to do. And I'll give a great example. When it comes to VPCM or VPME, if people want to run for that job, I tell them all the time, don't try to come up with a bunch of new ideas. That job is jam packed. There is so much work to do in that job that the work is there. Think about how you can refine, or if you have one really good new idea, think it through because you have to do 8,000 other things in that job too. And so I think about those two things. The other thing that I think about that we haven't touched on is public speaking. And when you have to do this job, you have to be a good writer because you're putting things in writing and the nominations committee is vetting that. They are then doing an extensive interview with you. You're doing podcasts, you're doing videos, and then you're having to go at national convention and you're having to do like what I call like the tour of all the districts, or you're getting up in front of the delegation. You have to be prepared. What's your 2 minute speech, your 5 minute speech, your 10 minute speech? Think about the questions. Like if you don't prepare, that faltering sometimes publicly can sometimes be the thing that it's like, okay, maybe that was the moment that I didn't do so well because I wasn't ready. And so, again, getting that feedback from folks about how you speak and how you present in front of people is very important. And the other thing that I think about too is that you have to talk to people about your ideas and vet them through students, not just alumni, because the students are the one it's going to resonate with. So vetting those ideas and getting that feedback from them. And then finally, just thinking about how when you are putting yourself out and you are in these moments that you are doing the best you can in the moment and to not be too hard on yourself. That we can always go back and every time I ran for something, I can tell you that I could have done it different. Every time I ran for something, I felt imposter syndrome. I remember being national president and being so scared, so terrified when that election is really largely ceremonial for us. We know who our national president is going to be. That there does nothing to take away the fear of that moment of, oh God, what if I don't get 50% plus Mike Osborne? Like it's scary. I mean, and there's such a pit in your stomach. And so I never took anything for granted. Even running for board of trustees, I remember saying to my husband, like, if I don't get elected to this, like I want to talk to Nick and see if maybe I can serve on ritual committee because this is a ritual year and that's something that I love and seeing if there's a space for me there. Like I was thinking about like if this doesn't happen for me, how do I want to serve and in what way do I want to do it? And I think that's one of the things I would encourage people to do is that there is a place for everyone to serve in the fraternity because there's so much work to do. And so to think about like what are the different ways that you want to serve, and if this doesn't work out in your favor, think about what those other plans might be so that when it does happen, it you can think about what's next. Or maybe what's next is I just need to take a step back and take a breather and that's okay too.
Yeah, absolutely. Having that next steps plan, I certainly love hearing that. I also love that very first thing you said about whenever you have a good idea, jot it down. Famous football coach Jim Mora Jr., currently the coach at UConn, when he was interviewing for different head coaching jobs, he used to always carry around a sack full of notebooks. And he would present that to all of his interviewees saying that every time I have a good idea, I write it down in a notebook. And here's my sack full of notebooks. I've had so many great ideas. Now we can have differing opinions on how good of a head coach he was, but the concept is still a very valid one. When you have these good things that you really want to investigate further, write them down, really think about them, and vet them like nobody's business. I love that you keep going back to that because that is where you're going to get the best feedback out of anything. We did have one question come in our chat, and I'll just kind of leave this up to whoever would like to answer this. We can take somewhat of a free form approach to this one. Do y'all have any tips on how to live in the moment at a convention during an election year and not feel so overwhelmed?
Okay, Brittany, I thought that this was a great question because I am as Adam Cantley would say, the extroverted extrovert. When I'm at convention, I want every moment with people. And so you can ask my husband, he will often leave me hours before and say he's going to bed, even if the gathering is in our room, and he will still leave and tell everybody, you can hang out here, I'm going to bed. So I always, because again, I love to just soak up the time. And so I think what it comes down to is that centering yourself of why you want to do what you do. And ultimately, you're doing it because you care about people. You're doing it because you care about the fraternity. And it is when you are running for a national election, it is scary, it's exhausting, it is anxiety filled, it is you are putting yourself out there in ways that are just so vulnerable is the only word that I can think of. Like I think about this past election, we showed vote counts in recent time. I don't remember seeing that. I was terrified. And I say that because just because you've won one election or you've won one office doesn't mean you're going to win another. Doesn't mean that you're going to be successful the next time. Doesn't mean, depending on the candidates and the ideas that you're going to resonate again with people. And so it's you never get past the fear and anxiety. But as folks have mentioned, during the call, having the people around you and understanding that like there's some things that are just out of our control, and all you can do is give the best that you can in the moment. And the best that you can is the ideas you're putting forward. Because if anything else, you are giving brothers choice. You're giving brothers perspective. You're giving brothers an opportunity to choose between one set of ideas and another set of ideas about how to best lead the fraternity. And even if your ideas are not the ones that are chosen, I think there's something to be said to think about. Like Ed mentioned earlier in the call, and it was so great that if those ideas were just not what you were looking for, it may not, it's not necessarily about you. It's about what people are putting forward. And so trying to separate that and remind ourselves that like everyone has value, everyone's important. Brothers, I think we have done a lot to work on the respect and to the care of our candidates in our process that hasn't always been there through the years. I think it's gotten a lot better to really take care of people and their mental health during elections. And to just be mindful of when you do have folks in the process to check in, like Ed said, check in with them and have empathy, because it's a lot. It's a lot.
And just to kind of add on to that, but Jess is an extrovert. I'm an introverted introvert. So not having time for me, and like everyone's different, but for me, having that quieter time is important. So making sure that you're making that room for it in whatever form that may take. If that involves like sitting in your room and reading a book for an hour or something like that, great. If that means just hanging out with 5 or 10 people rather than 20 people, that's fine. If you're not going to be good at talking to students, if you don't have any kind of emotional regulation throughout that week. So making sure that you're making that time in whatever form that means for you is important.
All right. Thank you all so much for that. Let's go with any final thoughts you have to share with the audience here tonight. Maxie, will go on with you.
Final thoughts, I would say, don't take things personal. Um, Remember your why. That's very, very important. Remember your why. And like I said before, if you don't succeed at it, take a step back, take a breather, see how you can be a better brother, and move forward from there. Try to find a good community of brothers who can support you and help you in your future endeavors.
All right. Thank you. Ed?
Echo very much what Maxie ended up saying, and my fear in us being honest about this experience is that we're going to scare people away from national office, and I hope that isn't the case because. But I think people need to go in with a realistic idea of what that experience ends up looking like. It is difficult, but you know what? At the end of the day, you get to present a vision, your vision of what Kappa Kappa Psi should end up being. And outside of a fraternal context, if it's a job interview or if it's just talking with someone that you want to impress, that you are presenting a vision of what you have to put forward. And sometimes that vision is going to succeed, and sometimes it's not. And in the instances where it isn't, just seeing what you can learn from it. Like Maxie said, don't take it too hard and move on to whatever the next thing. And while knowing that moving on isn't necessarily a immediate process. Most of the time, it's not an immediate process, and giving yourself that grace so that when the time is right, you can move on.
And Jessica, let's close it out with you.
I think when I think about national elections, um, one of the things that I will say is that if you are someone that's remotely considering a national election, a district election, a chapter election, I am happy to be a sounding board, to be a mentor, to read your materials, to give you feedback. And I don't think we say that enough. That I have helped many a brother in a million different capacities. And so if you're listening and you're thinking about it, would love to be a support system for you because I think the greatest gift that I ever got was people that did that for me. And so I just don't be afraid to reach out to people. If you reach out to any brother, but especially brothers that have served in leadership or any of our past national presidents, would respond immediately and would be helpful and coaching and whatever you need. And I think sometimes folks can get nervous or intimidated when they hear certain names or titles or things like that. And just encouraging that everybody is a brother. Everybody is nervous. Everybody has had that feeling of imposter syndrome. I've gone through it so many times, especially as I mentioned, when I was becoming national president, being a woman leading the fraternity and how daunting that felt and how scared I felt about that. And so those feelings don't go away just because you've achieved something. I think that it's just natural as people that we have those fears and those anxieties. But there are so many people in the organization that would be willing to be helpful and supportive. And over my time in leadership, I have held like many a call, like VPSA, talking about the position and stuff. It's something I'm really passionate about because I firmly believe we have to support and help cultivate the next cross section of leaders for whatever office it might be, district, chapter, national, whatever. And so I've always felt like it's part of my due diligence and leadership to be able to tell people, hey, I think you'd be great. Or I'd love to, if someone reaches out, I'd love to be able to help you to talk about like looking at your platform for office or whatever that is. So just want to leave folks with don't be afraid to reach out. Don't be afraid to put yourself out there. And if you're thinking about it, happy to be a support.
All right. Thank you for that. While we have spent a lot of time tonight talking about elections, that's kind of been a central theme. What I really want everyone to take home from this is that, even these very successful people here on our chat tonight, they have experienced failure. All too often, it can feel like I'm the only person that ever experiences failure. All these other people, they're doing great things. They're so successful. Oh my goodness. I must be the only mess up here in my circle. That's not the case. Everyone has this feeling, everyone has this experience. It's a universal thing, and we can all use this experience and grow from it, as I hope we've demonstrated here tonight. I'd like to thank everyone for coming out tonight. Thank you to my panelists. Thank you to everyone watching on Facebook or here in the Zoom chat. Stay tuned here next month for our next fireside chat. If I recall correctly, this will be on November 11th. So we'll look forward to seeing everyone back for our next fireside chat. Thank you.